Today is Tuesday, March 4th. This is a special meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust at 6:30 p.m. And we do have a quorum this evening with Sue, Mary Ann, Matthew, Bartlett, Mark, and myself. So let's go ahead and get started. Good to see everyone. Amy, thank you so much for being here this evening. On our agenda, we have just two items. The first one is to talk about any applications for the mini grant and review them and vote if necessary. But we don't necessarily have an application, but we do have a question that was posed by Amy and team. And so I wanted to make sure to get all the input from trustees before we go ahead and kind of formalize that. Maren, would you like to explain the situation?
I'll start and then Amy will step in and correct what I said wrong. We have a household and the home is in the name of a trust rather than the name of the householders. So new news to me today was I went back and looked at the registry, and there was a trust. This trust was created in 1982, so it's not a new situation. Same homeowner or same residents have been in this home since at least that time.
Yeah, they built the home themselves, to be precise. This is not an uncommon situation amongst those that are, as you're aging in place. You want to protect some of your assets in the event that you go into a nursing home. So it makes you ineligible for certain things, such as the different Mass General Law exemptions that you can get through the assessor's office. But I'm hoping that we can still work with this family in this instance. I'm not sure how it was written or if this would be an issue for the grant. That's my hope, is that we can still work with them. So we just wanted to clarify whether, they're still owner occupied, they own the home. This was something that they had put in place to protect some of their assets in the event that they did end up in a nursing home. And they still pay all their taxes and everything. This is still their residence, but it's to protect some of their assets in the event that they went into a nursing home.
And Amy, do they meet all the other criteria? AMI
Yes.
And everything else is in place? This would be the only deviation, would be that the home is owned by a trust. And is it in their children's name, or is
it's an irrevocable trust with the children named?
Okay.
Yes.
So could you just clarify, you said that the house is owned by the trust, but then you said, do they pay the mortgage and the taxes?
There's no mortgage on the home.
Okay.
It's fully paid off. But they maintain and handle everything for this home.
Okay.
Independently. They pay their taxes. This was what they had done as a precautionary measure in the event that one of them ended up in a nursing home.
So I guess from a purely mercenary point of view, since they pay their taxes in town, we should give them this money. Right? Like,
I like that thought process.
That's where the money came from, and that's what it's for. I can see this as a slippery slope where there could be trusts where this is not an appropriate use of the money, but it sounds like to me I would be okay with this.
I agree.
I agree too.
So I think where I come out on this is that I'm okay with it as well. I'm familiar with this process of the trust, but I would stipulate that it needs to be occupied by the owner and that it's not a rental.
It is not.
Yeah, and I think that those two stipulations can either be added in if folks agree to that, or that's something that we need to make sure of, because having a home in a trust is actually quite common in Massachusetts, not in other states, but it is common here. And so from that standpoint, given what you've said, Amy, about this particular situation, it seems like it still fits.
Mm-hmm.
So
It does.
for any future trusts that the household that this is supporting is owner occupied and not a rental. Any thoughts, folks, on that?
Isn't the owner occupied part of the requirements to begin with for just getting this grant?
It is.
It
Yeah.
is. The only reason I got nervous is just because it was named in a trust. Like, so typically in certain situations, you'll see homeowners where they don't have this set up already. Or they have it set up where it's, like them owning the property and then it being the beneficiaries being named in the event of a passing. This one is an irrevocable trust, which is a little bit different, but they still occupy the home, pay all of the property taxes, pay everything and maintaining the home and all of that. This was just to protect some of the assets in the event that one went into the nursing home.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve this?
Could I ask, what is the loan for?
They're exploring putting in a chairlift so that they
Okay.
can access their bedroom
So
instead of living off of the couch.
okay, thank you. Is there a grant number or a loan number or anything that we can identify this as?
I believe
Wait.
they're still working through the application process. This question just arose and there was a meeting, so
Okay.
can we run
Okay.
it? Please
Yeah.
run it.
All right.
They didn't want to apply if they weren't going to be eligible for the.
So we don't
For
need
the
a
program.
we don't need a motion tonight because there's nothing in front of us.
Okay, it was just a motion to be able to say that a trust is going to be
Oh.
eligible if they are the home is owner occupied and not a rental. Yeah.
So I
And the
move that.
I just want to add that the beneficiaries are other family members, which this is.
Well, the owners are the beneficiaries. They're the seniors who are living in the home.
Okay.
They're not the beneficiaries of the trust, right? Someone else has to be.
They're the beneficiaries are the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they own the couple owns and occupies the home, pays all of the maintenance and
Yeah.
property taxes. But the children are named as the beneficiaries. They are not named in the deed.
So Bartlett, are you saying that for any time there's a trust, if we want to vote on it, that the family members have to be the beneficiaries of the trust? In the case of giving this money to a house owner that has a trust?
No, I'm not saying any time that, I'm just, I mean, I have no problem with a trust within a family. I just don't want to, I mean, as you said, a slippery slope. It could go, I don't know what the other alternatives are, but I'm perfectly content with this. I think that we should determine that we will, that the trust is not an issue in this case for us.
Yeah.
Whether we need to vote on that or not, I don't know, but
Maren, do we need a vote on this or no?
I think we've heard enough direction from the board and have an understanding of what it is you're looking for. If there's another situation that we need clarification on, we'll certainly bring that forward and we'll know how to address situations similar to this one. So I appreciate the input.
Thank you. Amy, thank you so much for raising this and bringing it to our attention through Maren.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to our next order of business, it is to discuss the RFP questions that Laura and Shelley from MHP sent to us, as they said they would at our last meeting.
Okay, so just now promoted Laura and Shelley to panelists. I see them. They are joining us fully now.
Terrific. Laura, Shelley, welcome so much to our meeting this evening, and thank you as well for the questions that you sent.
Thanks.
Sorry to jump in. Linda Stein is here as well. Would you like me to promote her?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So Laura and Shelley, I wanted to introduce you to one of our trustees who was not here at the last meeting, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Matthew.
I'm sorry I missed the last meeting. I had my my calendar invite on the wrong day. So I have no one to blame but myself.
Yep, it happens.
And Linda Stein is joining us as well from the Historical Commission town. And then I wanted to give an apology to Maren, as during our last meeting, I realized after the fact that I had not officially introduced Maren to you, Laura, because it sounds like you had not known Maren beforehand. So hopefully you've had a
I
chance.
think we've met before.
We've crossed paths. Thank you.
Yeah.
And of course, you know Shelley. So, all right. So with that said, Laura, how would you like to proceed? Because you gave us a list of questions. And do you want to just start at the top?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to lead it? Do you want to?
Sure. I think that will be good for a pace that way questions can be answered directly.
Sounds good. So I'm sure as you saw some of them, you will be able to answer. Some of them it's too early, and some of them are, you might need more information. So the first question was around housing tenure. Ownership or rental, special population, and typically we, like to see this influenced by any needs assessments that you've done. Or it could just be location and the site you're dealing with. So I think I heard things last time on either ownership or rental. But I thought you were leaning towards ownership, but I will let you speak for yourselves.
So I think based off of what you had mentioned, you had some either statistics or information that said out in the marketplace what units are ownership versus rental based off of how the projects are being funded and developed. Could you share that again?
Sure. So there really is very limited funding for homeownership units. There's permitting, special permitting that you could do, but as far as subsidizing the units, there is very little. So it does make it hard to do it unless it's something like, a nonprofit that that's their business. But even then, someone, they still need to find some funds. They usually cobble together some local funds to try and make it work. So it is difficult. There's a lot more funding available for rental housing. Most of them, you have to have a minimum of 8 units to access, and those are from the state. The majority of them are from the state. And those range per unit. Typically they will, the HLC is the state agency for housing and livable communities. They will provide $100,000 per unit for a rental unit. Sometimes a little more, especially if it's a smaller project. They usually need a little bit more than that. So that's
Thank you.
kind of what's there.
So I thought that with this information from you, Laura, and others about the funding, I thought we were leaning towards rental.
Yes.
Yeah.
So too.
And I'm sorry, just so I'm 100% clear, you're talking about funding for the home, for the renters or homeowners to purchase the place, not construction.
It's construction, it's development subsidies,
Oh,
and then that brings down the cost.
Okay. So it's much easier to build rental units than units for purchase.
It is right now, yes.
And to get interest from developers, I guess, when they can get that kind of subsidy.
Right, small projects is still hard to make work, but yeah, it does. If you can layer a couple together, you can make it work.
Okay.
And then, the next up was, are you looking to change the zoning? I actually don't know what the underlying zoning is, so I probably should start there. Is what you're considering allowed under zoning, or will you need to change zoning or look to a friendly 40B?
So I'll jump in on that. The zoning is, residents would not be allowed,
That's what I thought.
that layout would not be allowed. And I would lean towards, a friendly 40B if I were guiding the permitting on this.
Okay, that's helpful. That's typically what we see, especially when it's not like you're gonna rezone a district. And so, that's very common.
Well, and I was wondering about that, given that it is residential there. As we mentioned before, up the street, some of our MBTA housing is zoned, a couple blocks away from there. So I'm a little, I guess I would say, concerned, just because I haven't lived in Littleton when the original 40B came through town, and that caused a lot of trauma. Calling it a friendly 40B, I suppose, is better, easier. But I think if folks hear that word, it might, set off some triggers for folks. Is there any other option other than a friendly 40B?
You could rezone, the town could rezone the area. It's frowned upon to rezone just one parcel.
Right, right.
Because
Okay.
that's spot zoning and
Right.
is not lawful.
Okay.
Well,
Even though it's done sometimes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I get that piece of it. So I think one of the other questions I had to confirm with all of the trustees is on the question above, it talked about special populations. I don't think we're talking about special populations, but we just said families. Is everybody on board with families, right? So we're not talking seniors. Okay. Because if it was going to be seniors, then we have a senior apartment bylaw. But since we're not going there, I guess friendly 40B it is.
well, we could certainly think about seniors. Or, I mean, could we look into, adding our 5 acres to the multifamily zone that's across the tracks?
Across the tracks and up the street,
Yeah.
you could, and then the other, potential direction would be a quote senior residential development special permit from the planning board, and asking the planning board to waive the any age restriction. The planning board has the ability to do that, and has done that at the Weber Village.
So adding to the MBTA district wouldn't help you, because the MBTA law says that you are limited to the 10 or 20% affordable units anyway, right? So you're going to have fewer affordable.
No,
Well-
you can always develop more affordable. The minimum in the bylaw is 10%.
I thought the state I thought said you couldn't.
The zoning says minimum of 10%. You can always develop it with something different.
But
Just
then-
can't require it.
Right,
Can't require it in the zoning.
correct.
but-
And I just want to remind everyone that if the housing is not age restricted, seniors can still apply. Income qualified seniors can still apply and live in that. It's just that it doesn't exclude people who are not
Right.
60, 62 above.
So let me just say this. I may be overstating the concern about calling this a friendly 40B. Most of you all have lived here longer than I have. So if, would you say, let's just not worry about it and go with it?
I think it's a concern. I
Any
mean,
other-
not be the end. It may not be a deal breaker, but I think it's something we'll have to pay attention to.
maybe in the communications and how it's communicated. Okay.
Right. I mean, if that becomes the only viable way to do it, this is such a small project. It's not, 100 units or something.
And
It's really
so-
just a permitting tool
It's-
because your zoning doesn't allow it
Yeah.
on its own. So it's
Right.
really just a permitting tool. And I think if you lead with that, that this is
Right.
the path to permit something that you support as a community.
Right.
right, and
That's good
And,
language to use. Thank you, Shelley.
yeah, and in the request for proposals, it will just have what the underlying zoning is and then say, we expect you'll have to, find a path to the permitting. It, I'm obviously a big supporter of 40B because it does bring affordable housing throughout the state. And I, definitely advise communities to use it to your advantage. It can be a great tool for the town to use if you can't get zoning changes for a whole, for a district. It's how multifamily is done outside of cities. So,
And with a friendly, you get somebody who's on your side to work with you, to work with the town.
well, with a friendly 40B can be pretty much anything, but most put that label on a local initiative program 40B. And that's only if there aren't tax credits. This isn't big enough for tax credits, so this one would probably fit in a local initiative 40B. And in that, the Board of Selectmen has to sign the application. So it shows the town is supporting it. Obviously, the town or the trust is providing the land and will have put an RFP out and selected a developer based on the criteria you have. So you're already starting with town support, bringing that, it should be supported by the Board of Selectmen, and then that helps bring it over. And Nick, if there's any sticking points, it's usually discovered before the Board of Selectmen sign off on it.
And we happen to have two select board members here, Matthew and Mark.
And just to extend Laura's point a little bit, the select board would sign the application, the comprehensive permit application that goes to, or local initiative program application that goes to the zoning board of appeals.
Goes to the state.
Goes,
The LIP application goes to the state because they're the subsidizing agency.
oh, okay, thank you for the clarification. That helps.
That's right. So they get the project eligibility letter from the state,
Mhm.
but only after the Board of Selectmen has signed the application, and then it comes back to the ZBA.
Right.
Okay, at that point, it comes back to the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
For final decision, well, for the
But
town.
then they do
town
their
side
hearings.
decision. Right.
The state doesn't do the full investigation that the zoning board does. They just give, I call it the golden ticket, the project eligibility letter that
Mhm.
then gives them the authority to apply to the ZBA.
Thank you.
Affordability, you bought this with, or you use CPA funds to purchase this land, so we know that it has to be 100% at the maximum of 100% area median income. I don't know if you were anticipating something deeper or more. Obviously, if it has to go 40B, there has to be 25% at 80 AMI. And if you've talked about it, if you have a feeling for what you're looking at or a needs assessment that would guide you.
We don't have a needs assessment that would guide us in terms of the levels of affordability, but I think we've had in previous meetings, like maybe back in December, where we talked about how we would like to have, as many affordable as possible and as deeply affordable as possible. In the question, it says, how specific do you want to be? I think this is one where I would say we could ask for one or two units to be at 60% and maybe the rest at 80%. Do you have any guidance for us on that?
Or the way that the scoring goes is there's, criteria and then what is not acceptable, what is advantageous, and what is highly advantageous. So those are the three categories of scoring. So typically, less than because you use CPA funds, anything less than 100% at 100% is unacceptable. That doesn't fit in what they could do, what you could allow them to do. And then you could say something with deeper affordability for the advantageous, and then for the highly advantageous, I'll give you some examples of what others have done. Units with a range of affordability from 30%, which is really project-based Section 8s, 30% to 80% or to 100%, whatever you want to do. And that gives a developer the chance to, they know that they have to go deeper than 80. They know they can, well, if things continue, we don't know where Section 8 is going to go, but assuming they can get a couple of project-based Section 8s, and they can use those to help make the project work at lower income, and then go up to 80 or 100, whatever you would want. That's the way that a lot of communities score. So there's like the unacceptable, the acceptable would be 100% at 80, or, you tell me, but that's kind of, and then highly advantageous. Let's get deeper, and we'll let you go up to 100 to offset those deep ones on a
So
couple.
So I don't see any way that house can be done as the existing house can be rehabbed as an affordable unit. So how do we figure that into the equation, or do we have to separate that out and sell it separately and then put that money back into the CPC or the other?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what, in looking at, I haven't been out to the site yet, but in looking at the pictures and understanding the number of rooms in there, I don't think I agree with you. I think it would be very difficult to make that an affordable home. And you could subdivide it off and then pay back the portion that would be CPA.
So I think one
Okay.
of the documents that we briefly touched on last time was something Linda had acquired, and that is the listing of criteria from the Westford application, or the Westford RFP, I should say. So being able to follow something similar to that, I think, would be helpful. Trying to find it right now, but
So they had 60% AMI in that proposal.
Mhm.
And
How
I
many
think they're,
units was that?
sorry?
Do you know how many units that was?
That's where they divided up whether it was highly advantageous, was the number of 60% units, right? So the more 60% units, the more advantageous it was. I can look up the exact wording.
It will be very difficult to do a majority of 60% units. 60% units, typically, that's the standard for tax credit, and you really need 28 to 30 units to do
Right.
tax credits.
Yeah, they said 20 or more units at 60% is highly advantageous, 15 to 19 at 60% was advantageous, and so on.
So,
Bartlett, you have the floor.
well, I was just wondering if, I mean, given the size of this unit, could we say something like half of them at 80% and half of them at 100%? Would that be able to get us to advantageous? It won't be highly advantageous.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we put a pin in this and between now and the next time we meet, I can do a little back of the envelope when we have some idea of how many units there's going to be. I can do a feasibility back of the envelope and then we can come in with some numbers so that we're not kind of pulling from the air what we could do or what a developer could do.
Right.
That sounds very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Building design. Are you, obviously with the barn, that's going to, have to be done to, respect the historic, aspects of it. But for the new construction, are you, as I said the last time, you can't be prescriptive, but you can do design standards, or you can leave it, fairly wide open.
So in the last 5 years, there was work that was done around the Littleton station when we were still working through the whole development of that particular area across the street. And the planning board did have some design guidelines for that area that were created. Maren, I don't know, would those be acceptable in this situation, or would those be considered overly prescriptive?
When those were drafted, it was considering mixed use, so I'm not sure they'd serve you very well in this case, for a small residential development.
Yeah. But my thought was that, the barn is going to get, a bunch of windows and perhaps some dormers, but it's going to stay looking like a barn. For the whatever new buildings, because it's across the street from, a row of new-ish, 4-bedroom, what they call colonial around here, new houses. Could we just say that whatever new building they do should sort of be in that family of, looking residential, that it should look like it's, at least trying to be part of the neighborhood.
Right, that it fits the character.
And you can make that into a 2-unit or a 3-unit, depending on what we decide with the number of units in the septic system and stuff like that.
Okay, so complementary to the neighborhood design.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So if the house is staying and it's going to be subdivided off, do we know the barn's going with the house or with the other property? Or are we just going to say everything?
I would say we have to sell the house by itself and leave the barn as part of ours because of the septic system. The house has a septic system that, if it were hooked up, would be functional.
Yeah, but then they don't have any place to park because they'd be parking on their septic system.
No, there would be, there's.
I think we're getting
And setback
into
requirement.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
questions that
no, what
that
I'm saying is,
the
I don't know
developer
that we're
would
necessarily,
come to us with their answers.
no, they won't because we have to subdivide it before we can go to the development.
No,
And we have to decide, so how, we can't do, if you already said we can't do 100% affordable with the house. So we have to get the house out so that we can do 100% affordable.
but you won't be transferring the property until, um, until everything's been said and done. It's easier. I would bet that that house, wouldn't have sufficient land to, or frontage, they might have frontage, to meet zoning.
No, it does have frontage, and we could, I mean, there's a wing on it that it's, I mean, part of it is old, but I think that could easily be converted into a garage. So I don't think parking is going to be an issue.
I think I'm thinking of subdividing it off.
Yeah. But, if we go, we draw a line 15 feet from the end of the building, that gives us the side yard and it gives us parking and it leaves some room for the barn.
Laura, can you explain what you meant about how you would propose we go forward with this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that because the house doesn't lend itself to affordable housing, that I would suggest subdividing it off, but I think you can subdivide it when the permitting is done for the other development. It means holding on to it until that happens. Unless there's a path for it, there's enough, it could meet zoning if you subdivided it off, or I don't know whether Littleton does variances.
This might be a
Aaron?
silly question, but is there a developer that would take the whole thing and do the affordable housing plus the rehabilitation of the farmhouse?
But if they took the whole, well, I guess I think the sticking point is going to be that, you bought it with CPA.
Game money.
Okay.
CPA funds. So it would have to be affordable.
Okay.
I think that's the issue. And it can only be 3 bedrooms because of the septic.
Okay. Makes sense.
All right, why don't we, so designed complementary height limitations? Any height limitations?
Probably 3 stories.
3 stories?
That's what the houses in that area would be.
Yeah, you'll see that it's an interesting situation because you have the brand new Durkee Farm development sitting right behind it, and across the street from it are $1.5 million homes. So and then you've got the antique home. So have all that to work with.
Right. So in the conceptual site plan that was part of the package that you sent with the application, it was showing 1 building for the additional units. I'm just asking the question. That's what you're anticipating? Okay.
Well, I think, again, we want to be open to this. It doesn't have to be 1 building. If somebody comes in and says we can create 2 separate buildings because that better meets our vision or design, then I think we can accept that as well.
Sure.
I think for cost, 1 building is probably going to be what you have. Okay. Amenities is really, it's really too small to have a whole lot of amenities. You may be able to get a rental office just so if management has somewhere to to meet with people. And we may be able to, I mean, we're not gonna do it, but an architect may be able to fit something in the barn. And then, I don't know if you want outdoor program space, storage, those are.
Well, one of the lovely things about this site is that, again, it has a train station across the street, and then are trails off into the woods on the backside of that major street. So I think there are some natural amenities there. And one that I wanted to mention is that we make sure that there is a walkway to the train station. Right now, the site itself sits on a very precariously curved road. And so being able to actually build out the sidewalk, build out the walkway that allows people to safely cross that street, I think would be a huge amenity. Not just for that particular site, but also for the rest of the Durkee development that
Neighborhood.
needs to take their lives into their hands as they're walking that windy little road.
So Bartlett, do you know, does this property actually back up to the Balsam Lane? Should we require a trail?
No, it doesn't. There's the border on that side is a narrow of 40 or 50-foot width of conservation land that separates our lot from the houses on Balsam.
Okay, so we couldn't actually
So-
get directly to the Balsam trailhead through the woods.
You could by skirting the wetlands, I think, because the houses stop and there's quite an area as the ground drops off towards Foster Street. There's an area that is open and you could put a trail there.
So that would be a conversation with Conscom then, or, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Interior unit design, any preferences or requirements? Usually around laundry facilities, fuel, a lot of
All electric.
Yeah,
electric.
it will be all electric because there's no gas in that neighborhood.
Okay,
Um,
I think the laundry facility should be based off the building, so shared, I think, would be fine. Does anyone think otherwise? Bartlett?
Yeah, I guess that would be okay. I mean, we're talking about, small number of units in each building, so it should work.
yeah. And unless you're requiring something, it's usually best just to leave it,
Yeah.
And the all electric, they'll figure that out.
Since we're talking about families, what size would be or is kind of considered appropriate in an affordable unit?
Well, LIP is about the local initiative program is the only one that has, not the only one, but that has standards. I think a 2-bedroom is 800 square feet and a 3-bedroom is 900. Shelley, do you? No, I think it's 1-bedroom is 600. That's usually difficult to meet. And then 2-bedroom is 800. And I think the 3-bedroom is 950, which is small units.
Those are very small units.
Yeah. The 300 for a 1-bedroom is fine, but the other two means you have very little storage space and
Yeah.
especially the kitchens are not a lot of storage. So usually they end up being, bigger than that. More like 850 for the 2-bedroom and 1100 for a 3-bedroom.
If we said a minimum of 800 square feet for a 2-bedroom and a minimum of, what do you think, everyone, 1,000 for a
Well-
bedroom?
I think that sounds reasonable. I'm just wondering if we're going to be prescriptive about the number of each units, or if that's something that will come back in the proposal. Because I know we said we wanted family, and we do, but if we also want to maximize the number of units, is it possible we might need some smaller ones as well?
Probably you will. To maximize the number of units, you would need to. Usually they offset the 3-bedrooms. So you average 2, sorry. So if you typically you average 2 bedrooms. So however many 3s you have that many 1s, and then the rest is taken up by 2s.
Anybody have any other thoughts on bedroom size?
We can certainly say maximize the number of units to accommodate families,
Yeah.
that will accommodate families.
I would rather, that these units average higher than 2 bedrooms, just because with what's going on elsewhere in town, there are an extraordinary number of 1-bedroom units over being proposed at 550. So I know they're not all affordable, but here it seems like it's closer to the train station. It would be better to do families, commuters and larger units, and not be in the same market as the ones that are going in uptown.
I agree.
I don't know how yeah.
Can that get us to eight units?
It might be hard.
The
The
unit,
preference would be all 3 families, right? Or, sorry, all 3 bedrooms, but I think we also have to get to 8.
and so just so we're all on the same page, make sure I understand as well. So we're saying 8 units, Marianne, because that tends to be kind of the threshold number for developers looking at projects. Is that what your thinking is?
That's what I was hearing. Yeah. So, and to get
8 is the minimum for state funding.
Right.
So to get 8. Well, we'll work on it.
Okay.
I guess that's a question too. If we have 6, right, with the 3 bedrooms, would it be a feasible project without state funding?
No, it can't support itself.
Okay, so we have to get to 8.
That makes it easier.
Okay, yeah. Black and white is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think the site design, I don't think there's probably much choice in where it's gonna go. Based on what I was looking at between the wetland buffers and the easement on the front of the lot. So we can probably skip that one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you
I don't know what that easement is. I don't know if it's still valid, but anyhow, yeah, doesn't matter.
Okay,
Isn't that the water for Grimes Lane? Anyway, doesn't matter. You're right.
I
Yeah,
can look it up anyway.
there's an 8-inch main in Grimes Lane.
Um, energy efficiency. Do you
Net
have
zero.
net zero?
Preferred.
Preferred. Several years ago, I went to a affordable housing development in, I think it was in Dennis on the Cape, and it was net zero. It was beautiful development.
Mhm.
So it can be done.
Oh, yeah, we do. MHP finances, a lot of, net zero passive house. We actually give a discount on the permanent loan, if they have, certified, net zero or passive house or one of the other, platforms. So,
Right. So that's actually a possibility then.
mhm,
Great.
is, so part of the scoring is usually how experienced the development team is. And there's kind of two different, thoughts on that. One is we want the most experienced developer, with experience doing this type of development. And the other train of thought is we want someone who is experienced in development, but not necessarily has done something exactly like what we need. Because of the, renovation and change of use for the historic barn, I would advise that they have some experience in historic restoration or
Yeah.
renovation. It's not something for someone with the fate of heart had never done it before. New construction is, a lot easier. That's what I'd advise, but I'm obviously open to whatever you guys feel. What type of experience they should have.
I like the idea of some experience in historic renovation so that they can work with what's there. Any other thoughts?
I think that's going to be necessary.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Affordable housing management. So it's really just, making sure that they either have experience managing affordable housing and are, well-versed in fair housing and compliance. Or they have a team member, or they're gonna hire a management company to do it that has that experience. That's gonna be necessary. It's just, we will, be explicit in the RFP that they need to have that experience, or they need to buy that experience.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
So no self-management unless they
Right.
are certified.
We have a town housing authority that runs public housing. Is that a possible management agent for this kind of development?
It could be, you just can't dictate it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But
But a developer could reach out to the housing authority, for compliance. The management side of it, the day-to-day kind of things can be done by, self-managed if they've managed residential before. It's really the compliance piece.
okay.
Are eligible, tenants, are the tenants eligible and is the rents,
Right.
and are they, being fair in the wait list and not skipping to get to
Right.
someone that they know? It happens. And then, another scoring criteria is on the financial feasibility and how realistic the pro forma is that the developer will include in the proposal. So is there somebody in your group or in the town that can review those financials? And
Well,
if not, we often just get a consultant to help. Because MHP does permanent rental financing, this would be really small for us to do, but just for not to have an appearance of conflict of interest, even though we have the skills to do it, we don't do it if we helped with the request for proposals.
I know that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think back when we first chatted, there was the potential of including mass housing. I don't know if there's somebody who we could connect with on something like this as well, or through you, obviously.
I don't know. They've kind of, I just heard they lost their staff that was doing technical assistance, and I think that they're not going to be doing it anymore. But that's a down the road thing.
Okay.
So we'll,
And then also I was going to say, I know that Mark and I took a look at the financials from another project. So I think we're both comfortable with financial statements and looking at the math, so to speak. So, and then if need be, we could also include other appropriate boards, whether it be somebody from our FinCom or some other group, if we felt that was also appropriate.
yeah, again, these are really early pro formas, so it's really just, is it reasonable? Are they saying they're going to get, $1 million from the state when, that's not realistic, it wouldn't be realistic. $1 million might be realistic for this, but, that's really, it's kind of a smell test more than anything else.
Okay, sounds good.
This is probably a good time, I should have said it in the development experience, because the Inspector General has ruled that all parts of the proposals that come in are public. We don't now ask for business statements or financial statements from the proposers, because you won't get them. They won't. They won't respond. So we ask for bank references, and then somebody calls and gets a reference and you can say, are they, would they, if they have to put down so much equity, say, are they sufficiently funded that they could absorb putting this much down based on the pro forma that they've put in. So again, we can get there. I just wanted to be clear, because we used to get financials in a sealed envelope, and then they weren't public, but now they are.
Okay.
Land conveyance, are you going to sell the land, or are you thinking of a long-term ground lease? Or have you thought about it either?
Why would
We've
we
talked
not
about it,
sell
but
the land?
deed. I'm sorry, what, Mark?
Why would we not convey the land?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about a deed.
I don't think I heard that. Why wouldn't you convey the land?
Yes.
Some communities and housing authorities, don't like to give up the land. They think there's some greater control. There really isn't a whole lot of control. But there's some, and, it's a 99-year lease is considered the same as a conveyance, so, it's just I think it just makes people feel like, they're not giving away the land.
There's some communities that might be politically strategic to do a land lease versus an outright conveyance. So I think it just depends on some of the politics of the dynamics in Littleton.
Okay.
In either case, are you looking to, recoup any funds?
We paid $50 for it, so
Oh,
yes. This was a true donation.
well, are you looking to, put money into the trust? I mean, I think most likely they would be asking you for some funds, but, the price proposal used to be separate from scoring. Now it's part of the scoring. But you can say in the RFP, you know, you're expecting a nominal amount or something. Okay.
$50 isn't enough for 8 units?
Yeah, could be.
Okay.
Most communities donate the land.
Yeah.
You know, it's what, helps make the project work.
Right.
It also, helps when the developer is looking for funding from the state, if the town or the trust has contributed, the land. They look very favorably on that.
That's great. Because that's how I think that's how I've been looking at this, is that's our skin in the game, the contribution, along with what funding we're able to put forward.
Let's see, where am I? Review committee, typically it's, the whole trust. You can add or subtract people or change it to somebody else, or that's up to you. Again, you don't have to think about it yet, or you can think about it, but you don't have to make any, hard decisions yet. Who's going to review the proposals? And we just talked about price. So anything else? What did I forget? Nothing?
Any other questions or comments that you feel we should talk about right now?
I'm going to channel Angus right now a little bit and talk about elder, accessible designs for the fittings and stuff in the house, which he is important. I mean, I know that he's going to say that we should require it as part of the process.
It's universal design, I think it's called, right?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Angus is our trustee who's not able to be here this evening, and he wasn't at the last meeting either. And he is our resident expert with experience. He is a gerontologist.
So I guess the question would be, what could we add that in as a certain number of units have to be universally accessible?
We can put a highly advantageous. Some are gonna have to be, probably only one would have to be, fully accessible. If the developer, or if we think they're gonna go 3 stories, HLC will require an elevator. So that's, you know, and a 0 step to get into, the building. So accessibility in a new building will be, could be, universal design could be most of them. They'll all be visitable. Most of them could be accessible or universal design, so they could be made fully accessible with very little renovations. It's, you know, really just
Right.
pulling things out so that's cabinets out so you can slide under. But yeah, we can definitely put that in. I think the barn probably will be more difficult to be made. First floor, you know, maybe if we think about it, anything that's first floor has to be, you know, we could say something like that. And then if it's 3-story and there's a elevator, that just increases the accessibility.
So if it's 3 stories, would the state require an elevator no matter what? Or only if we decided to make it universally accessible?
They usually require it with 3. They don't always, if it's family housing. They do, well, let's say even if it's family housing, but if it's 1 bedrooms, they would. And, you know, it depends on where it is a little bit. If it's, if you had 3 and 4 story buildings that were walk-ups, were part of your, you know, vernacular of the town, then they probably wouldn't. But I'm from the Cape, and any 3-bedroom, they require it.
Floors, okay.
3-story. And some of the universal design and visibility kind of design is beneficial for more than just seniors, like families that they're using strollers that are schlepping little kids around. Those kinds of things can be really beneficial beyond just
Right.
for many different stages in life.
Absolutely. Very true.
Other questions?
Does it make sense for us in the RFP to commit to things like you know, having the connection to town water already in place, or committing to do that as one of our expenses?
You know, anything that saves them money, yeah, that's,
Okay.
you know, that would be desirable. Yeah, if that's something you can do.
Yeah, so Bartlett, I think we should probably explore that further just to confirm.
Yep.
In writing. With liquid water, yes.
Okay, so next steps, has the trust voted to make this land available for disposition? Probably not.
No.
If you have an example motion, that would be helpful.
That's really it. You know, just that, you know, I don't think at this point, I mean, my gut tells me that house probably needs to be subdivided off, but I think we have to do a little bit more work around that. So, you know, I'm sure obviously you'd need to put it on an agenda that you are going to vote to make the property, you know, to dispose of the property is the terminology. Make it available for disposition is what the IG says. And then I can do a first draft of an RFP, and then I think best to take a look at it and then we can edit away. It's harder to be talking about it without having something in front of you. So
Right.
that's why I start with the questions. They help me put parameters around what's going to be in the RFP, and I can get it somewhat right, hopefully the first time, and then we'll we'll refine it and get more or less specific as we go along.
Great. That sounds wonderful.
Sound like a
So-
plan?
We can have that vote about the disposition at our next meeting, which is actually in 2 weeks on Wednesday, March 19th. So, Mara, we can add to the agenda.
Right, and then once we start working through the RFP, then I'll be reaching out for attachments that have to go with it. Votes and deeds and things like that. Some of it I already have, but we'll move that along, and I'll do a little research on that easement and see what I can come up with. All right.
And in terms of timing, are we thinking of another couple of weeks or a month for that draft? Just so that we can put it onto our agenda.
See where we are. Probably just to give me enough time, not the next meeting, but the meeting after that, if you meet every 2 weeks. I
We
don't know.
typically meet the third Tuesday of the month, which
Oh, okay.
we take it out to April. Let's see.
15th.
April 15th, right, tax day.
Next day.
We could meet earlier or sooner than that because we have made a commitment that if we need to meet more often, we can. At the same time, we don't want to overly rush you. So what do you think about the timing?
Right. I could do it sooner than that, but 2 weeks isn't long enough.
All right, so let's have a meeting April 8th, if that's the right day.
So by the 19th, can you give us a date when you would be ready? Because then we could schedule a meeting for that, right?
I could be ready by the 1st.
And that's not an April Fool's, right?
Yes, April Fools.
Okay, so the 1st is a Tuesday.
Yeah. You said you usually meet on Tuesdays, right?
Mhm. Is everybody here available for Tuesday, April 1st?
I will not be available that day. I will be flying. I could do the 2nd or the 8th.
The second
I
works for me.
Second? Bartlett, could you do the 2nd?
Yes,
Okay, Sue?
Yes.
Kathy's a yes, Mark's a yes. Okay, so then Wednesday, April 2nd at 6:30 p.m. or any other preferred time? If not, we can-
I might be a little bit late for that. I've got a 5 o'clock meeting, but I think I can be back in time.
Okay, so 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April.
Ellie, you good for that?
I may not be able to, but it's okay. I think you should still move forward. I have a 5 o'clock meeting and I also have a 4-year-old, so I just don't know if I can do those 2 back to back. But I'll see if I can.
And you record these anyway, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And I am available, so,
Okay,
all right.
terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Laura and Shelley. Any other final questions before our guests leave for tonight?
I think I'm good.
Bartlett, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
No, I'm good. I think I'm okay.
Okay, terrific.
My only comment is we need to make sure about separating the house and the barn.
Yeah.
That we can actually physically do that, or determine, I don't know that there's 30 feet between those buildings, Bartlett. We'd have to determine that for sure, right?
I can go down there with my tape tomorrow.
Right. So, and if they're not, then we need another plan that doesn't include the barn.
Or we can just get a variance.
Well,
Or you run through the 40B permitting process and you don't
Yeah.
need a variance,
Don't need it. Right.
All right.
right?
okay.
Does that make it unfriendly?
No. I don't know. I'll ask you. It doesn't make it unfriendly to me.
All right, so members, just a reminder that our next regularly scheduled meeting is on Wednesday, March 19th, and that's at 6 p.m., not 6:30. Okay.
Okay.
So again, Wednesday, the
Thank you.
19th, 6 p.m. Thank you,
Sounds
Laura.
good.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.